So, The Rising Sun. How was it? It was okay-ish. Last episode was better, although that's hardly surprising considering who wrote this episode. I genuinely want to know if there's anyone out there who really enjoys Eugene Ross Lemming and Brad Buckner's work, because to me, they're mediocre at best. At worst, they have just made the most terrible hours of television I've probably ever seen. They're just the worst writers on any TV show I've been a fan of. They're just kind of terrible. But I would love to know if there's anyone who really does like them, why they like them. Please tell me your reasons if you exist. Fan that may be out there. But there were things about this episode that I did like. I am continuing to like Jack. I like how they put references to Castiel with Jack, because Jack likes TV and burgers, and so does Castiel. Jack is mirroring Dean, where Castiel, especially in the 4th and 5th season, took a lot of cues from Dean, because Dean deeply inspired Cass to be the person who he was meant to be, because as we learned then in later seasons that Cass did disobey sometimes, and he was always sort of an independent thinker. It's just he didn't remember any of that because all the times he was reprogrammed. But then Dean helped Cass to need to stop to do that. So yeah. And Alexander Culvert, I think, studied Misha in the earlier seasons of how Cass reacted to things then is like sort of how Jack reacts to things now in his face. So that's interesting. The more the parallels grow, the more complex Jack's character might become. So I'm looking forward to more of that. Something else that I might be looking forward to is Michael finally becoming a real character. Because if I have one criticism of season 5, it's this, where Michael was more of a feature of Lucifer's story than he was a fully fleshed out character. He did get a monologue in Swan Song, but the information that he gives in that monologue really isn't any different from what we could glean from what we learn about Lucifer beforehand. Michael has never really been interesting, but now maybe he will be, and that would be cool if that happened. But of course, the Sam and Dean reality, Michael and Adam especially, are still in hell and still need to be rescued, so hopefully that still happens. But to get to the bad, which unfortunately I have more of. One joke that TV writers keep doing that I'm sick of is using Trump's campaign slogan of Make America Great Again, and they'll change a word in that slogan. Like in this episode, it was Make Hell Great Again. I'm sick of that being used in TV shows. Hopefully by 2018, nobody will be telling that joke anymore. On to bigger issues. Sam and Dean are boring to me now because I already know their thoughts and opinions on Jack before they even say them, because it's so much beat, repeat. Their reaction to this situation is exactly the same reaction they've had to situations before, where Sam is sweet and hopeful and hopes for the best in people, but Dean, because of his issues and is more cautious, doesn't believe it will work out for them, always expects the worst. So, I mean, that's tired and it's boring for both of their characters, and I don't really care about their opinions this season for that reason. And it might have been nice to have switched it up, where maybe Dean was, more protective of Jack and Sam was the one thinking, like, maybe we'll have to kill him after all. It would have been more interesting if they would have done something different with the both of them, but they didn't, and this is what we have, so I'm bored with both of them and I don't really care. Here's something that doesn't really matter. Does anyone else miss when demons were dressed mostly like regular people versus being put in black suits all the time? I miss Gamble and Kripke era demons who had way more personality in their clothing versus just being mirrored to look like angels. I know that's not a huge deal, but I wonder if anybody else misses that besides me. Speaking of costumes, costuming. The angels in fatigues in the place where Lucifer and Mary are made me roll my eyes. I cannot believe that they put angels in fatigues. That is so cliche and so obvious that I just couldn't help but shake my head and roll my eyes at it. Well, to get into more meat again, when I talked last review about how the creators of this show just don't give a flying fuck about continuity anymore, I could point to this episode as a great example of how they just don't care anymore. Because, first of all, when Jack had the Bible and he was holding it and it didn't burst into flames, like it did when Cass gave the Bible to the pregnant Kelly who had Jack in her uterus, and it burst into flames. So why is it that Jack can handle Bibles, but when he was a fetus, they burst into flames around him? That doesn't make any sense. But what makes even less sense is this new character, Asmodeus. What the fuck is up with his powers? Being able to burn out the eyes of a demon or burn out the eyes of anyone is a classic angel power. Like, that was one of the things that was introduced to us when angels were introduced to us back in Lazarus Rising. Like, that was something that we hadn't seen before, eyes being burnt out like that. And that's one of the things where if the boys are investigating a scene and you see people with eyes burned out, it's like, angels were here. We know they were here because these eyes are burnt out. So it's like, how is Asmodeus able to burn out the eyes of demons? Why didn't Azazel have this ability if they're supposed to be the same type of demon? And all of the shape-shifting that Asmodeus can do, where no other demon has been able to do that before. Why is Asmodeus special? Why does he have these powers that no other yellow-eyed demon has had? And bigger question about Asmodeus is, where the fuck has he been? Why wasn't he there during the apocalypse? Along with Azazel and Meg and Lilith and all of those other big, Alistair, all of those other big power players. Like, why wasn't he involved with them with the apocalypse? Where the hell was he? And I bet anybody $20 right now that just won't be explained. It also won't be explained why now was the time he decided to come into the story. It happened because story. It happened because TV show, as the Midnight's Edge guys would say. It's so hard to take Supernatural seriously sometimes because these huge gapes in logic that exist in the show, if you think about them for 5 seconds. And it really wouldn't have been difficult to solve this problem where maybe the angels created a prison for Asmodeus, or hell, maybe one of the Knights of Hell, maybe Abaddon put Asmodeus into a prison for some reason, like he ran afoul of her and tried to usurp her power or whatever, so she put him in a prison. And then Asmodeus's introduction would have been the demons trying to free him because they think he'll be able to find Lucifer and bring him back, or Asmodeus is just like a good leader who will lead them now. And that's why these group of demons decide to free him. It explains where he's been all this time, and there you go. But no, he just comes in like it's nothing. And I suppose to talk a bit more about power continuity is, what's up with Donatello's powers? Why is he able to sense where Jack is, where demons are, where angels are, when Kevin never had any of those abilities? So yeah, another big gaping hole in continuity and showing off how much they don't care about it anymore at this point. Okay, so what do you guys think? Agree, disagree, sayonara, and auf Wiedersehen.